Hi, and welcome back, everybody, to DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 312, which just amazes me. Listen, each and every week I sit down here and I answer your questions. If you have questions, do us a favor and send those questions to this address, podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. Now, we get a lot of questions. I try to stay away from the medical intervention questions, but today we have a full mix of questions, and I'm kind of excited to get started. So a real simple question, and this one came in from a forum. The question was about the book Armor Building Formula, which you can find either at armorbuildingformula.com or danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. And it's a question about the continuous clean and press. So I went in the weight room today and I just demonstrated the difference. The continuous clean and press is an exercise that I think is really underrated. Now, I'm going to share a video with you. The continuous clean and press, and it's kind of funny when you write it in your notes as CCP. For those of you of a certain age, that'll remind you of CCCP, which of course was the Russian spelling of the USSR here in the West. But the continuous clean and press is when you clean and press, clean and press, clean and press, clean and press. There's another variation that you can do, what I just call in my notes, clean and press. That's one clean and then press, press, press. So a set of 5 in the continuous clean and press would be clean and press, clean and press, clean and press, clean and press, clean and press. A set of 5 in clean and press would be clean, press, 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 press. It's a small difference. It's a subtle difference. But I got to tell you, from the feedback I'm getting from the barbell versions of the Armor Building Formula, and just thinking back on when I was young, and that's the way we used to do exercises, the continuous clean and press for hypertrophy is really underrespected and underrated. When I look at, Greg O'Gallagher has been demonstrating the Cuban press for a while. When I look at the Cuban press, I think it's a great exercise because of my throwing injuries. It hurts me a little bit, but I think you get the same benefits from the Cuban press in the continuous clean and press, but you can do more load, and you also get that ticker going. So thank you from the forum question. I hope that helped out. I love this kind of thing. So I'll do my best to demonstrate more exercises in the future because I really like it. We have an interesting question here from Ged Minus, and he says this: I have 2 quick questions. I'll do my best to answer them quickly, though we all know who listen to the podcast, that never happens. 1, I've been incorporating kettlebell training into my classes for teens and preteens just once a week due to time, equipment, space, and other limits. And overall, it's been a success. Students who lift are clearly stronger. I teach only the basics: deadlift, goblet squat, swing, and push-up. Oh, I love that. But the students are very happy with the results. However, a small sample of my students seem to reset every session. Sure. No matter how I cue or explain, I end up reteaching the same basics again and again, even to those who seem motivated or national champion material. From your experience, what might be this disconnect? Are some students simply slower to pick it up, or am I missing something as a coach? Roughly, how common is this in your experience? Well, there was an issue, and I hope some of our listeners already picked up on it. So, in my old office, I had that little note: repetition is the mother of implementation. So young lifters need a lot of reps. And of course, the issue is this: on one day a week, a lot of the younger athletes, and this is no fault of their own. Honestly, there are certain times in life. I got a granddaughter who I swear every time I see her has grown an inch, and I see her at least once a week. There are times in life, probably middle school for most girls here in America, certainly high school for the most boys here in America, they are growing like bamboo shoots, right, 20 feet a day. So that's going to be a big impact. So the age group you're working with, they have some physical things going on. But secondly, they also got a lot of other things going on, because if you've ever spent much time with junior high kids, and for those of you who work with junior high and middle school people, you are going straight to heaven. I can't imagine a harder group to work with day in, day out. But there's a lot going on. And they might not be forgetting. It's just in the 7 days since you were with them last, they might have had hundreds, if not thousands, of interactions and new things. And of course, with social media, all that stuff, it just might be that their nervous system and all their systems are just kind of overwhelmed. If you can, obviously repetition. Repetition is not just the number of reps in a training session, but it's also the number of repetitions in a week. I'm a real big believer that you can't rush progress, little and often, all this, the long haul. I mean, I've got a million cliches I can start throwing at. But I would say that might be a big factor. Number one, you're not training enough days a week. You can't fix it, so don't worry about it. Second, you just have to remember what these kids are getting hit by. Again, you can't fix it. But just keep remembering this. You're doing the right thing because you're focusing first and foremost on the fundamental movements. Honestly, as I look at the list he's sharing with us folks, deadlift, goblet squat, swing, and push-up, I think those are 4 reasonable, achievable, repeatable movements that they're going to keep in their pocket literally the rest of their life. This is my 60th year in weightlifting, but if I look at that list of 4, and it's like, though those lifts and variations of those lifts have been part of my stockpile of secret exercises since day one. So I think you're doing fine. I gave you some ideas. I really didn't give you any answers because the answer is more days a week and, having them try to get on the road to mastery. That'll come. Teaching them the fundamentals is far more important than worrying about perfection today. The second question. When I started coaching, I struggled and lost many students. We all do. We all make mistakes. Over time, I've improved. Better energy, happier kids, stronger results, and less burnout for them and me. But I want to keep growing, especially in helping students build long-term motivation to move and train. How do you keep your students engaged over the long haul? Do you use any templates, goals, or rituals in each class to support this? For example, I always end with a personal feedback on what went well and what to improve. Oh, by the way, that by itself is outstanding. I also teach kids age 3 to 16. Oof. How would you adjust your approach across those age groups? First off, I can't answer that. That I don't have an experience with ages 3 to 16. Too bad my father's not alive anymore because he went to, when he grew up in Island Pond, Vermont, it was a one-room schoolhouse and all the kids learned, and he helped teach the math classes. So maybe if my dad can answer that. A couple things. First off, I always think it's important to meet as a group. Now, we had 100, it was an hour and 20 minutes. So we had 80-minute classes in the weight room, which by the way is wonderful, but it's a ton of time. So I would always meet and I would review the workouts. Now, the schools I taught at, I was allowed to open with a class prayer. And one of the things that's nice about opening with a class prayer, you could also just get one of those books that has a quote of the day or something. And you just ask students if there's anything we should remember, any big events in your life, anything I should be concerned about. Sometimes a hand would go up and you'd hear, let's pray for my mom, very, very silently. And you'd find out later on that, mom was suffering with cancer or something like that. Sometimes it was, things, I got to tell you, honestly, I had a real pulse on what was going on the campus because of that tiny little moment we stopped and reflected. However you work that out will be good. I think you should start, you stand, everyone's seated on the ground, you go over what you learned, past, present, future. Last week, this is what we did. Today, we're going to do this. Now, ultimately, you're going to be using this. When you're almost 70, like my good friend Dan John, you'll still be doing these movements, okay? When you're 10 years from now, when you're near 80, my good friend Dan John is still 50 years from now. Okay, I can't do the math. My good friend Dan John, who's almost 120, is still doing these movements. And then you're going to go. So again, past, last week we did this. Present, today, here's what we're trying to do. Don't forget these fundamental things. And next week we're to come back and do them again, but we're going to add a new refinement or whatever you do. That by far was the best thing I used to do. The other thing, always end about 5 minutes before you're supposed to, and then everybody has a job in the cleanup crew. Oh, I tell you, that was huge. It was fun. Every group, every area had it was interesting. We had all those spray, and even before COVID, my gym was COVID proof. Every year the biology students went around, and their hypothesis was that the most bacteria-filled place in the school would be my weight room. And they always found out after they did the swabs and the little Petri dish test that actually the weight room was the cleanest spot on the campus. And then they discovered there are certain places in the facility you never wanted to put your hands on. And it was the bathroom doors the farthest away from the administration buildings. So I was very proud to have such a clean weight room, not just for hygienic purposes, but for safety purposes. I actually think that a cleaner weight room is a safer weight room. People don't trip over things as much. I hope that helped. Fun question. Haven't seen it before. Thank you. We have a question from Jacob. My question is in regard to your armor building formula. The program has been a great implement for me, and I have definitely noticed improvements in not only my kettlebell workouts, but my athleticism and physique as well. Jacob, thank you so much for saying that. I'm getting such positive feedback from the armor building formula, and maybe even by the time this podcast comes out, the new book will be out on it. We'll see, but I really appreciate the feedback. And the athleticism and the physique thing, that's the thing that most people are surprised with. Even though armor building is a hypertrophy workout, when you do it, it doesn't seem like it'll build yard wide shoulders or whatever it is. All right. However, that being said, with kettlebells currently being my sole strength and conditioning modality, I can't help but feel that my chest and lats don't always accrue the necessary stimulus to elicit gains in strength and hypertrophy. Okay. So I still believe the body is one piece as a fundamental truth in training. And I understand a lot of people still have that 1970s Frankenstein's monster bodybuilding view of things, to the point that, I mean, if you're at a Highland Games and I flip the caber, someone will ask, what muscle does that build? And I'll look at them like, well, all of them, but we'll move on. Now, in your armor building formula, you have ABC alternating days with strict military press. In your mind, do you think it'd be prudent for someone to swap the strict military press day for a day revolving around dips and chins? And if so, what would be your set and rep structure look like? Well, yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I love dips and chins. I love them. And the second I say pull-ups or dips, then a whole bunch of other questions show up. So let me answer the question. Let me answer your question, Jacob, first and foremost. I love this idea. Dips and chins are really great exercises. The downside, dips hurt a lot of adolescents boys' sternum. I think this must be one of the last things that knits together in puberty. So if you have a group of adolescents doing dips, very quickly you'll get, coach, it just hurts right here. I used to have that. In fact, I stopped dipping until I got back from the Middle East, and that was that famous story of me walking past the girls' weightlifting class, and their teacher, Carla Keller, saying, "Mr. John, would you demonstrate dips?" And I hadn't done dips in a decade, but I was also 40 pounds lighter because of the liver parasite issue. And I knocked off 35 without training with a tie on. And I was like, I learned a good lesson. If you want your dips to go up, lose a lot of weight quickly. So you got the sternum issue with dips. On chins and pull-ups, you're going to have that middle-aged pull-up syndrome issue. And for those of you listening, I'm pointing to my elbow, that weird elbow problem a lot of people get. The other issue, if I recommend chin-ups or pull-ups, is all the questions. I can't do a single pull-up. What should I do? Well, you should hang. I don't have any place in my house to hang. Well, do the child's pose on the floor. I don't have a floor. Okay. I was being silly, but that's how I feel sometimes. The rep schemes, if you want to go 2, 3, 5, 10 on the dips, I think that'd be very good. In my gym, I have that belt. It used to be called a dipping belt, but I use it for chin-ups and pull-ups where you can add, and I use kettlebells, but 2, 3, 5, 10 for dips is probably a good number. And then with the chin-ups, you're just going to have to figure out what's a good number for you. One thing I'd recommend if you're going to do this, though, on the chin-up side pull-up, give yourself some time. Let's say, and I would keep it more in the greasing the groove pattern the first couple of weeks anyway. Let's say you can do 10 chin-ups, 10 pull-ups, and the last rep is solid. It doesn't look like, you're trying to, push a truck up a hill. Keep your reps at about 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, easily pop down, rest, pop back up. So, and I want your rate of perceived exertion, which I just find funny that we had to give a name to that in this day and age, because everyone who's ever lifted weights a long time, you're like, yeah, when I first explained that to some of my more experienced people, what's this RPE thing? How do people not know that? But that's okay. So you just want to make sure you get the reps in, feel good, pop down. So try 2, 3, 5, 10 on the dips. Try 50% of your max reps on the chin-ups. Give yourself, I would say, at least 2 weeks of doing that before you start adding a lot of load or even increasing the reps, because dips, hard elbows position for some people, sternum issues for some people. Break it in, feel good. Chin-ups, pull-ups, the elbow issue, the lack of ability to it. Give yourself some time to break in and enjoy it. Hope that helped. And it was a very specific question about adding dips and chins to the armor building formula. And I hope that helped you. Thank you. Okay, we got a question from Michael. Actually, this is really a fun question. After the Young Batman training segment, I was wondering if you had all the same resources available, how would you train a 65-year-old Batman, if he lives that long, who is coming to you because he is beat up and hurting after all of his years of fighting crime? So this is a question, and obviously it's Michael. It's Michael Keaton. I understand it, Michael, and you want to reprise your role as the Batman. Okay, we get it. Just hire me. It's a fun question. And actually, my first thought when I first read the question was this, is that one of the great glories of being in a long career is that you have this great ability to risk to reward, cost to benefit ratio, my ABCF formula. You know what works and what doesn't work. I have a number of friends and students who are police officers, and I remember one famously saying to me, the badge, the gun, and the car do 99% of the work for me. And I always thought that was an interesting thing. So the first thing you have to figure out is what the badge, the gun, and the car are going to be for you as the Batman. One of the things I like in the more modern Batman shows is the amount of research he does to find the criminals. So one of the things I'd recommend, first off, Michael, if you're fighting crime, is I would hire a group of computer savants to put together a real nice system so you can almost predict. Not like that movie where they predict crime. You get arrested for crimes you're thinking about. I don't mean that. But it's pretty easy to figure out where crime's going to happen in most areas. So first off, I would hire out a lot of help. The second thing I would do is I would begin to groom the next generation of Batmen. I would hire a whole bunch of guys and just kind of sprinkle them around the city. So we have, it looks like, I believe the police officers here call it scarecrowing. It's when you just drive around a lot just to let everybody know you're present. So, have Batman drive, one of your fake Batmans driving the car around, your other fake Batman is driving the Batcopter, the Bat plane, the Bat boat, the Bat skateboard, the Bat rollerblades. Now, let's get to the part that I would think about. The problem you're going to have, Michael, is, and I say it all the time on this podcast, I might have one more injury, but I don't have one more recovery. So for our friend Batman, we need to spend a lot of time in the recovery zone. Right next to me, right here, I have my sauna. I would suggest, massages. I personally like chiropractic adjustments a lot. I also have that weird sticky mat, the acupuncture mat. Cost me very inexpensive off of Amazon. I got this half roller thing. It's got these sticky things in it, and then the mat's all sticky. And I got to tell you, I have never napped better than with that thing. Check that. I've never meditated better with that. It is strange. I lay on it. All those things really bother me. They just stick in you. It's like a bed of nails. And then all of a sudden your body just goes, and I listen to a Brain FM non-guided meditation with my music cozy. It's got the mask, and it's got Bluetooth speakers here, so it's coming right here. And next thing I know, it's 55 minutes later, and I don't even know if I sleep. But the sauna, the massage, the chiropractic care, the physical therapy, and all those things are going to have to be primary, because as you said, beat up and hurting after all these years. For training itself, I would have to recommend what I do. 3 days a week I bodybuild, and between each and every set I do an original strength movement. Remember, we're talking, Michael, about a 65-year-old Batman. The rules have to change, okay? But I would take bodybuilding very seriously. If I train with barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells, suspension trainers, various racks, squat, pull-up racks, bands, everything else. But in this case, and since you have so much money as Batman, I would probably invest in some machines to do my training for me, just so I can progress by reps, sets, and load. And it won't be as exciting as doing, some of the other lifts like the Olympic lifts. But we want to bring down the risk to reward ratio. We want to bring those risks down as much as we can. Obviously, I hope, especially with all the money you have, I hope your nutrition is taken care of. I would hope you would have a nutritionist and a cook, and I would hire a personal assistant to swat all the bad things out of your mouth, and another personal assistant to make sure you're drinking your water, you're taking your magic electrolyte solutions, and your Metamucil and the rest of the stuff. I don't know how helpful this answer was, because you set it up in a way that forced me down into beat up and hurting, which means rehab, bodybuilding, and mobility. Ideally, you know how to punch somebody, bash. You know how to kick at someone, thwap. You know how to slap somebody, slap. For those you missed that was from the cartoon series, from the TV show with Adam West. You should know all that stuff. It should be there. I don't know if you still want to be rolling around the mat with your martial arts experts anymore. I don't know if you really want to be doing anything. And then I'd also invest in projectiles that take care of the perpetrators without you having to break your wrists and fists on them. Fun question, I got to tell you. I never realized how many people would ping me on these superhero questions, because this might shock a lot of you. I've never actually worked with a superhero. All right, thank you. We got a question from Matt. Matt says this: I'm heading for Nigeria for 2 weeks next month to visit my wife's family, and I won't have access to a gym while there. I'm looking for minimalist training ideas using body weight bands or anything else to help maintain strength and structure without complicating things. For context, I'm running half a marathon in a couple of weeks and plan to, and he uses another kettlebell program for whatever. I'd love your thoughts on how to keep momentum or some semblance of it while out of the country. Well, I'm very honest about what I do when I travel. And I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I always travel. In fact, I don't even take it out of the bag. I travel a lot, and I spend a lot of money on suitcases and travel things. In fact, I just invested in a new suitcase that comes with a built-in vacuum system, and it's so cool. Where we have this little device, you put it on, and it sucks all the air out of your clothes, so that your t-shirts that start like this just flat. It's like freeze-dried food, man. But I always travel, and they're both in the bag right now, with two things: a Brett Contreras glute loop, and you can buy other ones, I'm sure, but I like Brett and I like what he does, so I support him. I use the men's, I think it's called the extra large 3. I don't know why I called it men's, but it's the XL3. And then I also go with a Perform Better black mini band. So what's weird is because the amount of room these two things take are, I mean, it's just maybe a little bit bigger than that. It's barely even there. For those of you just listening, I just showed something small. And the nice thing, they both flatten, so they're no use at all. Whenever I land off of an international trip, when I get into my hotel, I don't want to do the following, but I do it anyway. I lay down on the ground and I put on my glute loops and I do the following thing. I do 15 hip thrusts, 14 clamshells, 15 hip thrusts, I'll start again. 15 hip thrusts, 15 clamshells, and then 14 hip thrusts, 14 clamshells, and now just follow it down: 13, 13, 12, 12, 11, 11, 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. That's a lot of hip thrusts and clamshells, but it seems to break the barbed wire that seems to grow in my body after international flights. From there, I generally will stand up almost immediately because my glutes are on fire, so it's a good idea. Then, while my glutes are still tired, I put on the mini bands around my socks, and then I do that monster walk where you heel out, heel out, heel out. If I'm in just a hotel room, I don't have a lot of space, I just walk this way, and then I walk backwards, walk this way, and then I walk backwards. The combination of the clamshell, the hip thrust, and that mini band stuff, that mini band monster walk, seems to undo, basically from my xiphoid process, my sternum down, seems to get everything back online. For the upper body, I used to pop down and do push-ups after this. But now what I do first is I get in that, I get back down on the ground and I do original strength rocks. And then if you're in the rock position, hands on the ground, we have an exercise we call earthquakes. And I go, there's side to side rocks. And then I inch my hands out, rock, inch my hand out, rock. And I inch my hands out until I'm in that thing called the child's pose. And then I stretch my shoulders, because if I can, I'd rather hang from a bar, but that's not always an option on the road. And I'm way too big to hang from, door seals or doors. I mean, I guess you could. I wouldn't trust it. And so the child's pose is kind of like poor man's hanging, okay? And then after that, I get up, I shake it out, and then I'll do a couple of what we call T push-ups. So you're in the up push-up position, you bring your chest to the ground, you put your hands off into a T, you bring your hands back underneath and you push up. That's one. The reason I like to lay on the ground is to ensure that my chest is touching the ground. Take your time on there. Another advantage of the T push-up is your hands. You can bring your hands back in on different places, and you can kind of find hot spots that might have showed up in your shoulders. Is it perfect? No. Now, somebody told me that they take the glute loop and they loop it on a doorknob and do some gentle rowing. If that's something you think you'll get value at, I get much more value from just simple hanging. So that's what I do. So hip thrust, clamshell, the monster walk, those get back to the 6-point, the rock, the earthquake, the child's pose, some T push-ups. By the way, you're not looking at, this doesn't take very long, but if you do that, and naturally I tend to walk, when I'm in Richmond and Twickenham, I walk 7 miles easy every day. So I'm not worried about anything. I'm taking care of a lot of business. If I'm in European Union, especially places like Denmark. I don't worry at all, because, especially Denmark, because the food, a typical restaurant in Denmark's food is what you would expect to find at a health food restaurant here in the United States. I mean, it's just so clean, so vegetable forward. I love it. I found the same Galway, Ireland. I don't know if Dock 1 is still open, the great restaurant, but I mean, their seafood chowder, I mean, I stand up and I just feel better, energized. So what you might want to do is, and of course, make up your own variations on the hip thrust and clamshell. You'll get kind of bored with those numbers after about 3 times. I do 25-10, 20-10, 15-10, 10-10, and 5-10 as one of our little hip thrust workouts. You can just make up things, but that's what I do. Also, too, I have never ever had any issues with finding a floor anywhere I've ever traveled. There's always floors are always available, and you can get it all done. And really, I mean, my office is a good size, but I could easily get everything done just in the area behind my desk here. It just doesn't take that much room. So I hope that helps, and enjoy. Okay, thank you so much. Kevin asked a question. What I'm going to do while I'm talking is I'm going to show you a video. The question is this: I wonder if you can talk about the value of the push press versus strict overhead press as you see it, with an eye on general health and fitness rather than for a tool of improved sports performance. You don't offer the push press as a variation of the armor building formula, so I wonder if you think there's any value to it. It's interesting you ask that, because in Pavel's book, Return of the Kettlebell, he actually quotes me, because I'm a huge believer in the video I demonstrate the 3 basics, okay? So there's the clean and press, which everybody does. Then if you add a little bit of leg to it, we call it in our world the push press. And if you decide to catch it, so you add a little leg to it and then you dip underneath it, that's called the push jerk. Now, I didn't realize until I put the bells down that they were mismatched bells, even though they both had the same yellow tape around it, but I did okay. I think the push press it's an exercise. If you go back to all my strength and health magazines, the push press is just something you did because, and as I say in Return of the Kettlebell, because you can use more weight, and there's value in using more weight. I mean, if you're stuck as a male with a 16 kilogram bell because you can't go from here to here, chase it with a 20, 24, and 32 with a little leg, and you'll be a lot happier long term. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of it, done with good reasons, and just don't pretend that's your actual, max, if it's an all leg lift. Kevin goes on. I ask, as I'm not a very good strict military style overhead presser, despite wanting to be one. All my efforts over the years have been the strict style, but I'm starting to wonder if sticking to the strict overhead press is giving more value. Then he says something really interesting. I'm 6'3", so I'm wondering if limb length is playing a part. Yes. And that's why I find it difficult. Or is it just maybe my excuse? Yeah, there's no question, Kev, that, the taller and longer you are, the harder it is. It's just physics. I've talked a lot about training members of the National Basketball Association and, trying to teach those guys how to squat. And it wasn't that they didn't have the ability to squat. It's just that their levers are so long. The squat takes a long time because it is, it's almost like an unfolding, one of those movies where a big contraption is a little tiny thing, and then it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's amazing to watch. Yes, Kevin, height can be a factor on lifting, no question. You don't tend to see a lot of really tall people being the best and brightest in powerlifting and Olympic lifting. Now, certainly there's examples with super heavyweights, but normally it tends to reward the shorter limb people. It just because it does. In the same way, basketball and volleyball reward taller people. There's no surprises here. So folks, if you're doing the ABF and you get stuck and you decide to add a little leg, you have it with my blessing. Just remember to acknowledge that in your notes. Make sure you have some, make sure you have some honest parameters about why you're doing this and how heavy you're going. There's a video of me, Bigger, Faster, Stronger has it, where I behind the neck jerk 385 for 5. And I had spotters, which made the difference. But, you can use your legs that's 175 kilos for my non-American friends. You can push a lot of weight. You can snap a lot of weight over your head. But when you go back to strictly trying to push it up, the rules change a lot. Thank you. Good question. All right. We have a question from Peter. Peter says this: I want to train the double kettlebell armor building complex, and I'm struggling with the double clean. Even with the pair of 12 kilo bells, I have a hard time fitting them between my legs, and I'm worried I might not be able to do doubles with 16s or 20s without standing in a sumo stance. I'm 6 feet tall, have a 31-inch waist. Jeez. So I know I'm a bit narrower than most people. Have you ever worked with anybody who has had this problem? Do you have suggestions for working around this? Are some people just not built to do double kettlebell swings and cleans? For those of you who don't know what the double kettlebell clean is, I have a little video of it. And there's a couple things I want to make sure you notice. One of the things I teach, and I think it's the correct way to teach it, and I know different people teach it differently, but whenever I do a kettlebell movement, I always try to do this thing called the V is to me. So if I had a parallel grip, my thumbs would be like this. For those of you listening, I don't know how to explain this. But for me, so I always start all my exercises with the bells in a V shape with my thumbs making a V, and the phrase is, the V is to me. And by the way, it makes your shoulders feel better too, if you're old and broken. By having my thumbs both kind of at this 45-degree angle, now the V is going to end up, going right at my zipper. I'm going to hinge out of the way, and then I'm going to snap it up into the rack. The other thing I want everyone to look at is keeping in double kettlebell cleans quiet elbows. The barbell clean is very active elbows. The kettlebell clean is no elbows, quiet elbows. You stick them basically to your sides, and then you snap it into the rack position. So pick it up like a professional. The V is to me. Drag the bell, snap it into your hinge position, and then quiet elbows into the double rack. The bell's hitting, you need to adjust your stance. I mean, I've seen women at certs do double 36s, and we're able to have plenty of room, not tall women, plenty of room to let the bells swing forward. So you got to get used to the bells kind of kissing each other at the beginning and as you pop and come up. I hope the video helped. I hope our conversation helped. But this is the reason I don't know why it's a hard concept, but so I have a coach, and I pay my coach a lot of money, to help me. And I've had a lot of coaches through my whole career, and I coach a lot of people. Good therapists always have a therapist. If you're a counselor, you should have someone who counsels you. If you're a teacher, you should have mentors. So getting someone to help you with the basics, someone who's an RKC or certified, is probably the best way to go. And if they have questions, they can ask me too. I hope that helps, Peter. It's a fun question, but try not to abandon the double kettlebell work just because you're struggling with something that you can easily overcome with practice, okay? I like double kettlebells because I like more load. The single kettlebell, if you read the book or you look at my YouTube account here, you'll find that I have a lot of single kettlebell variations too, and a whole single bell armor building formula. All right, I hope that helps. Thanks. We have a question from Jacob. He's a home trainer, he says, 35 years old, 210 and 6'6", and do not have a squat rack or bench. As such, I have no choice but to follow your advice of picking weights up off the ground, putting weights overhead, and carrying weights for time or distance, which is pretty good, as you might say, and I agree, I love it. My question is, am I missing anything by doing vertical pressing and not having access to horizontal pressing variations? I have a long-term goal of achieving body weight overhead press. That's a good goal. My current best strict press is 145 and you weigh 210. You're on your way. Given my specific proportions, this might be a difficult goal to meet, but I'm happy to give it as a benchmark way out there and slowly improve as I work on it. Do you have any suggestions to help with this goal? Okay, in my humble opinion, if you're in some weird concentration camp, political prisoner thing, and you only for the rest of your life could do one kind of pressing, and it had to be either overheads or horizontal, I would universally tell people to do overhead only. It's easy for you to add horizontal press if you feel like you need it. There's so many push-up variations. I don't even know how to start with them. My personal favorite was the TikToks, or Captain Hooks as we call them. It was a mix. You would crawl. After every time you moved your hands on a crawl, you do a push-up. It gave you great, very called TikTok push-ups. Crocodile, Peter Pan, TikTok, Captain Hook. Okay. You do a push-up. You move your hand for a crawl, push-up. Move your hand for a crawl, push-up. Move your hand for a crawl, push-up. There's T push-ups, slapping push-ups. There's, I'll stop there because there's so many. And I can't think of any, for actual honesty. I love overhead pressing. I think for most of the men I work with, because, as an American coach, they don't need any more horizontal pressing because of all the bench pressing and push-upping we do here in the United States. And what they do need is overhead work. So I love this idea of you chasing your body weight press. I think I mentioned that, a good friend of mine, one of my mentors, told me that everybody should strive for a body weight clean and press and a body weight snatch. And I got to tell you, folks, if you're a Division I thrower and you chase those two numbers, good things will happen. But in your case, Jacob, pressers press, I would suggest something along the lines of an easy strength or easy strength variation. By the way, with what you have, you could even do a power of the people variation. Every day you do overhead press, every day you do deadlift, and every day you do a loaded carry variation. At first, stick with the basics. Don't get cute for the first 2 weeks. 2 sets of 5, then play around with 3 sets of 3. And then over time, slide yourself into something like, I like that program Pavel has called The Bear, where you do your heavy sets of 2 sets of 5, and then you back off quite a bit. Somebody told me the best number to use after that was 64% of your last lift, which always makes me laugh because people who use percentages, I don't know, they're so hard to make work across the board. But I thought you start off, with, so say like your 2 sets of 5 in the military are 100 pounds, okay? Well, your back off weight for your multiple sets of 5 would be 60 in this example, or 65, which, by the way, is not a bad weight. It's 65 pounds is not a bad weight. 85 is not a bad weight. There are no bad weights. But 2 sets of 5, and then you back off and you do multiple sets of 5 with a lighter set. My friends who have done this combination called the Bear, I had one person say they got up to 20 sets of 5 in that back off reps. And I thought to myself, that's a lot of reps, but we've done 100 reps many times here in my gym. And I recommend 100 reps in the Armor Building Formula program. But the way you build up your overhead press is press. I don't think it's necessarily true with the deadlift, the hinge. So maybe you could do the Bear with the press and just keep standard deadlifting numbers, 2 sets of 5, 3 sets of 3, and those loaded carries, and just see what happens. So here's your program, Jacob. 2 sets of 5 in the press, and maybe 2-3 days a week. You then back off and you start building up those sets of 5 at 60%. If that's too easy, next time 65. That's too easy. 70. If that's too easy, you know what this said. Try to build up to 20 sets of 5 maybe. Occasionally, not all the time, occasionally, but get those reps in. I hope that helps. And that's it for today. Wow. Well, thank you. These are great questions. I really enjoyed it. If you have questions, remember, I'm here to answer most any question you send along, but send your questions to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. And I guess until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you.